So let's get started discussing how to select columns and rows. When you're selecting a column, you're going to select the entire column all the way to the millionth plus row. While selecting a row, it takes the entire row from column A all the way to column XFD. When a column or row is selected, every cell in the column or row is highlighted except for the first cell. This cell is the active cell. As with everything we're going to do in this lesson, the way we work with the rows is the same as how we work with the columns and vice versa. So I'm going to start by clicking on the number 2 or the row heading. And what I've done now is I've selected the entire row 2. If I come up to my columns and I put my mouse on the B for column B, you see how I get the little downward arrow? If I hold down my mouse, I can drag it over to column D, and now I've selected all 3 of those columns. If I come back and click on the A, I've selected column A. Now if I hold my control key and I click on column E, I've now selected both A and E even though they're not adjoining. To deselect your highlighting at any time, all you do is click on any cell. Now let's talk about changing widths of columns. The default width of a column is roughly 8 characters wide, depending on your font. As we've already seen in other lessons, that's not always enough. If the text is too long and the cell to the right is blank, the text will spill over. If the cell is not blank, it'll truncate it. With a word, this is fine. You still know that there's a word there, and if it's cut in the middle of the word, it's still telling you that there's more there because you'll recognize it as part of a word. However, if you truncate a number, that isn't as good. You might have $1 million and you lose the last 3 zeros and all of a sudden you've got $1,000. So if a number is in the cell and it doesn't fit, you're going to see number signs or pound signs as we do in K2. Now if you put your mouse there, you'll notice what I get is a little tooltip that tells me what the number there is. So I'm seeing that it's 31st of December 2007, and as we said in a previous lesson, all a date is a number that's been formatted as a date. Also, if you just click on the cell that has the pound signs on your formula bar, you will see the number that is in there or the formula that is in there. When you change fonts or attributes, you may also need to resize the columns or row. You can change 1 or more columns at a time. We're going to go ahead and drag from column A through I. Now if I come up and put my mouse in between any of these columns, you see how my mouse changes to a line with a 2-headed arrow? Then I can hold down and I can drag this, in our case smaller, to where it's 12 or 89 pixels. You see up above where I'm dragging it, I have width and it's telling me the size of it. And so I'm going to go to 12 and I'm going to let go. And what you've noticed is that it's resized all of the columns to the same size. To adjust the row height, it's exactly the same thing. The rows, the default size is 12.75 points. So I'm going to go ahead and drag from row 1 to row 6. Now it's the same thing. I put my mouse in between any 2 rows. I get the line with the 2-headed arrow. I hold down and I'm going to drag this to 18.75. And when I get there, I just let go, and now you notice I've resized all of the row heights. You can also automatically adjust a column to make it as wide as the widest entry in that column. What I'm going to want to do is come over here to my column H, and if I put my mouse in between the H and the I, if I just double click, what it's going to do is pick the widest thing, which in this case was the average sales word, and make the whole column that wide. I'm going to come over to my column K, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now in this case, and let me scroll over, it didn't make it wide enough for the 31 December 2007. It made it as wide as the figures previously provided on. That was our largest.